There is a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when eternity brushes against your soul. It doesn't shout. It doesn't force itself. It simply whispers, "Stop." And yet, most people scroll past it. Not because they are evil, not because they don't care, but because they don't recognize what is happening. This is the tragedy of our generation. We are flooded with noise, but starving for truth. We are constantly moving, but rarely arriving. We are entertained, but spiritually asleep. And God is still calling. Don't scroll past this moment, because some moments don't come twice. There are doors that open only once in a lifetime. There are convictions that visit only once before they grow silent. There are callings that, if ignored long enough, begin to fade. Not because God stopped speaking, but because we trained our hearts not to listen. Some of you feel it right now. That uneasiness, that weight in your chest, that quiet voice saying, "There's more. You were made for more." That is not anxiety. That is not coincidence. That is calling. But understand this. A calling from God is not always comfortable. It will interrupt your plans. It will challenge your habits. It will expose your compromises. Because a calling is not about making your life easier. It's about making your life eternal. Jesus never called people to convenience. He called them to surrender. Follow me. 2 words. Simple. Yet they demand everything. Not part of you. Not your Sunday version. Not your filtered self. Everything. And this is where many scroll away. Because surrender sounds like loss. It sounds like giving up control. It sounds like death to the life we've built. But what if I told you that what you're holding on to is the very thing keeping you from life? You're not losing everything by following God. You're losing what was never meant to sustain you. Your fears, your addictions, your empty pursuits, your need for approval. And in exchange, you receive purpose. You are. There's a voice that does not compete with noise. It does not shout over your distractions or force its way into your attention. It speaks in stillness, in pauses, in the quiet spaces most people try to escape. And because it refuses to compete with chaos, it is often ignored. Not because it lacks power, but because it requires sensitivity. It requires a heart that is willing to slow down long enough to hear what cannot be heard in constant motion. This is the call so many overlook. Not dramatic, not always loud, but deeply persistent. It comes in moments when you feel something pulling at your spirit without explanation. A sudden awareness that your life, as it is not complete. That something eternal is trying to break into something temporary. Most people feel it at least once, but few recognize it for what it truly is. Instead, they dismiss it. They call it overthinking, emotion, or coincidence. They scroll past it, distract themselves from it, or bury it under routine and noise. Because to acknowledge it would mean confronting something deeper. It would mean admitting that life is not just about survival, comfort, or success. It would mean realizing that there is a purpose that demands response. The silent call is not random. It is intentional. It is personal. It reaches into the core of who you are and begins to reveal what you were created for. But it does not force you. It waits. It invites. It draws, but it never drags. And that is why it is so easy to ignore. Because it gives you the power to walk away from it. Every time it is ignored, something shifts. Not outwardly, not in ways that are immediately visible, but internally. The sensitivity begins to fade. The awareness becomes dull. What once felt urgent begins to feel distant. Not because the call has lost its strength, but because the heart has learned how to silence it. People often believe that if something truly matters, it will keep demanding attention in obvious ways. But this call, Oprat, distraction is not always obvious. It does not always appear as something harmful or destructive. Often, it comes disguised as something normal, something acceptable, even something productive. It fills your time, occupies your mind, and gives the illusion that you are engaged with life, while quietly pulling you away from what truly matters. This is the subtle danger of spiritual distraction. It does not confront you directly. It slowly redirects you. You can be busy all day and still be spiritually empty. You can accomplish goals, meet expectations, and maintain appearances, yet remain disconnected from the deeper purpose of your life. Distraction thrives in environments where noise is constant and reflection is rare. It keeps you moving, reacting, consuming, but never truly understanding. There is a difference between being active and being aligned. Distraction blurs that difference. It convinces you that as long as you are doing something, you are moving forward. But movement without direction leads nowhere meaningful. It becomes a cycle of activity that feels significant in the moment, but leaves no lasting impact. The danger is not just in what distraction does to your time, but in what it does to your awareness. It numbs your sensitivity to what is eternal. It conditions your mind to prioritize what is immediate over what is important. Over time, you begin to lose the ability to recognize when something deeper is trying to reach you. This is why distraction is so effective. It does not require you to reject truth outright. It only requires you to postpone it, to say later over and over again until later becomes never. It convinces you that there will always be another moment to pay attention, another opportunity to respond, another chance to realign. But it never tells you that repeated delay changes you. Every moment of distraction shapes your focus. Every choice to avoid stillness strengthens the habit of avoidance. Eventually, what once felt like surrender is often misunderstood because it sounds like defeat. It sounds like giving up, like losing control, like stepping away from everything you have worked to build. In a world that teaches you to strive, to achieve, to hold tightly to your independence, surrender feels unnatural. It challenges everything you have been conditioned to believe about strength and success. But the surrender being asked of you is not about weakness. It is about alignment. There's a cost attached to it, and that cost is what most people are unwilling to face. Not because they cannot pay it, but because they do not fully understand its value. Surrender requires you to release what feels familiar. It asks you to let go of control, even when control is the only thing that makes you feel secure. It calls you to trust beyond what you can see, beyond what you can predict, beyond what you can manage on your own. This is where the tension begins. You feel the pull towards something greater, yet you also feel the weight of what you might have to leave behind. Habits, relationships, ambitions, identities that have defined you for so long suddenly come into question. Surrender does not ignore these things. It exposes them. It brings them into the light and asks whether they are truly aligned with the life you were meant to live. The cost is not always external. It is often internal. Pride must be confronted. Fear must be acknowledged. The need to control outcomes must be challenged. These are not small things. They are deeply rooted patterns that shape how you think, how you respond, and how you see yourself. Letting go of them feels like losing a part of your identity. But holding on to them comes with its own cost. It keeps you limited. It keeps you operating within boundaries that were never meant to define you. It creates a version of life that may feel stable, but lacks depth and purpose. Surrender disrupts that stability, not to destroy you, but to rebuild you in a way that aligns with. There is a path that does not attract crowds. It is not wide, not easy, and not designed for comfort. It does not promise instant results or public recognition. Instead, it calls for endurance, discipline, and a willingness to walk forward even when few are walking with you. This is the path that many hear about, but only a few choose to follow. The reason it remains narrow is not because it is hidden, but because it requires something most people are not willing to give. It asks for consistency when inconsistency is easier. It asks for truth when compromise is more convenient. It asks for depth when the world celebrates surface-level living. Walking this path means choosing what is right over what is popular again and again, even when the cost becomes visible. At first, the difference may not seem significant. The wider path offers immediate gratification. It provides quick validation, visible progress, and the comfort of moving with the majority. You do not feel alone there. You do not feel different. Everything around you reinforces your decisions. But over time, that path begins to reveal its limitations. What once felt satisfying begins to feel repetitive. What once felt fulfilling begins to feel shallow. The narrow path, on the other hand, often begins with discomfort. It challenges your assumptions. It exposes areas of your life that need change. It requires you to confront things you would rather avoid. There are moments when it feels isolating, when you question whether it is worth continuing. Because unlike the wider path, this one does not constantly affirm you. It refines you. Refinement is not easy. It involves pressure. It involves being shaped, corrected, and sometimes broken in ways that lead to growth. This is where many turn back, not because the path is wrong, but because the process is demanding. It does not allow you to remain the same. It insists on transformation. Those who remain on this path begin to notice something different. There are moments that carry more weight than they appear to hold. They pass quietly, without announcement, without spectacle, yet they contain decisions that shape everything that follows. You do not always recognize them while they're happening. They feel ordinary, almost insignificant, like any other point in time. But beneath that surface, something irreversible is taking place. This is one of those moments. It does not demand your attention, but it invites it. It does not force a response, but it waits for one. And what makes it significant is not how it looks, but what it represents. An opportunity to choose differently, to respond in a way you may have avoided before, to acknowledge something that has been trying to reach you repeatedly. Most people assume that life-changing moments will be obvious, that they will come with clarity, certainty, and a sense of urgency that cannot be ignored. But often they come quietly. They arrive in stillness, in reflection, in a sudden awareness that something deeper is being presented to you. And because they are quiet, they're easily dismissed. You may tell yourself that there will be another time, another chance to think about it, to respond, to take it seriously, that this moment is not the right one, that you're not ready, that there are other things to focus on first. These thoughts feel reasonable. They feel practical, but they create distance between you and what is actually happening. Every time a moment like this is delayed, something changes. The clarity you feel right now does not remain at the same intensity. The awareness begins to fade. What feels important in this instant begins to compete with other priorities. The noise returns, and with it, the ability to forget. This is how opportunities are lost. Not through rejection, but through delay. Not through refusal, but through distraction. The moment is not taken away immediately. It simply becomes less visible, less urgent, less present, until even